Welcome to It's All Geek to Me, a podcast where two friends experience popular nerdy franchises for the first time. My name is Leah, and this season, my co-host Kelly will be watching my favorite films, The Lord of the Rings, for the very first time, and I'm the expert. Let's dive in. Hello.
Leah's crying. Nobody's surprised.
Oh gosh, I have to say I freaked out. I texted Kelly when we were watching this because I was like, is the section long enough? Is this a weird place to break tension for the rest of the film? But it's a whole hour. So I was like, okay, I guess we should stop here. But I'm feeling the momentum and I'm like, I didn't want to stop watching.
Yeah. No, I'm glad we stopped here because I think it gives me a moment to kind of just catch my thoughts and just kind of see what I think is the next step here, like what exactly is going to happen, because honestly, what happened in this section, I could not have predicted.
And I also think it's good, in the format of watching a film, I don't necessarily think that this was a good place to stop, but I think in terms of the way that we're formatting this, it was a good place to stop.
I'm just imagining the people who are watching along with us for the first time are like, why would you make me stop here?
I cried a lot, so much.
Really? I didn't even think, there was maybe one part where I was thinking Leah could possibly cry here, but I didn't really feel like you would.
Well, no, I think from here on to the end of the movie, I'm pretty much crying the whole time.
Okay. Does that count as one cry, as Gimli would say?
I picked out some specific moments that I think really amp it up for me.
Specific cry moments. Don't forget that my bet was 10 cries.
We're past 10. I'm at 13 now, baby.
Really? Wow. Okay.
I pretty much started crying at the beginning of this section. In this section, we start, not to take away Kelly's role, but we start with...
No, you can start us off. Start us off. Let's make it funky.
I'll start us off.
Tell us, where do we start?
Where do we start off? We start off with Sam being an absolute baddie and coming to save Frodo. But he's crying the whole time. So this is where my emotions... this isn't a cry, but it's where my emotions ramp up from the beginning, Of him doing it for Frodo and the Shire, and he's calling out to them.
Well, hey now, Miss Narrator, I'm sorry, but first...
Okay, I'm sorry. You can narrate now.
We have to see Frodo waking up and seeing what's going on.
Yes,
so
yes.
I'm assuming he's in Mordor land.
Yeah, exactly. And he's been captured.
Okay, because I was not really 100% sure exactly where he is. So up until this point, I didn't realize that there were more orcs. I thought that we killed them all. So that's why I had no idea what this section was going to bring. So I thought that maybe there were just a few left over just hanging out. And Frodo woke up. He's shirtless.
So my assumption with these battles is that when they win, it's when they've overwhelmed the numbers, but not necessarily killed the numbers. So I assume that there's a retreat that happens and the orcs are able to escape, because the orcs are the ones coming onto their land. They still have a stronghold to go back to. So, and I'm sure they keep some of the orcs behind, so.
Okay, well, now we know. I wasn't 100%, but now I'm 100% sure. But Frodo's waking up and he's shirtless. His mithril, I think it was called, is gone. And a couple of orcs are fighting over it. And one of them wants to bring it to Sauron. The other one wants to keep it for himself. So they start fighting. And at this point, I thought that there were only a few left. I thought this was kind of just this tower of orcs just chilling. And then they start to get pretty violent with each other. And they're basically just killing each other off.
Yeah.
So by the time Sam comes in, most of them are dead.
Yeah, the orcs usually take care of themselves.
Yeah, they kind of just destroyed their own little army there. And I was like, oh, wow, they're pretty much all gone.
Yeah, and it's not the first time we've seen orcs kill each other.
And we also have this fun moment with Sam where there was a flame flickering and he saw his shadow on the wall and he pretended to be a big scary orc or whatever creature. And there were a few orcs that were scared, and then he jumps out and he's fighting them and he's like, for Frodo, for the Shire and all that stuff. And of course, Leah is sobbing in the corner, thinking about it.
I didn't sob yet, but I would say, I think I cried once. Yeah, okay. I definitely cried once in this particular section.
Yeah. So yeah, I was really impressed with the fact that he was able to knock all those guys down. And I don't know if he killed them, but he did a good job. But there is one left and Frodo's about to be stabbed. So he's moaning. He's trying to get the rope off of his arms because he's tied up. And the one orc that's left is like, oh, be quiet. I'm going to stab you anyway. And
I'm going to gut you like a stuck pig.
Yeah. I knew there was something about a pig. pig. I didn't write it down, though.
I didn't either. I just remembered.
Well, you've seen this more than I have.
Sorry, I'm going to digress a little bit, but
as usual,
I feel like anytime Kelly is saying a quote, she's reading it, which is fair because it's the first time she's seen it. When I'm saying the quotes, and I feel like I say a lot of quotes, I'm just saying them. I just remember them. So
no, I
feel impressed with myself with that.
If I hear something that I feel is significant, I'll write down the quote because I'll hear it and I'll think, like, oh, this sounds important. Let me write it down. Well, I feel like writing notes, which is something that I haven't done in a really long time, and the only time I ever did it was in school. But it's really interesting how much more, well, one, how much more you pick up, and two, how much more you remember. Like looking back at the films, I feel like I remember them so much better because I wrote notes.
Dude, I have to get your note-taking skills for the time we watch something where I am the new watcher, because I feel like...
I have a feeling that I'm going to be writing down notes for everything and I'm going to be whispering them to you.
Oh my gosh, yeah, because you're a better note-taker than me. You write every moment.
I'm very organized with notes. Yeah.
Well, I guess for this, I'm definitely taking less notes because I'm like, oh, I'll remember that. And I think that's why I get jumbled and I start like jumping around because it's all a blur to me. So maybe I'll be good at it. We'll see.
I've got a whole notebook full of bullet points of what's been happening.
Amazing.
Don't worry. I'll do it for all of the films just in case. So we can stay on track.
Yeah. But anyway, back to Sam.
So Frodo's about to get stabbed. Yeah. And just as he's about to, this orc gets stabbed himself. And we see that it is that glowing blade. It's the blade that Frodo once had. And it's Sam. And Frodo's like, oh, Sam. And he apologizes profusely. And then Sam's like, let's get you out of here. And Frodo is really sad. And he's like, no, you don't understand. They took the ring. And then Sam is like, I beg your pardon, but I actually took the ring. And then he kind of whips it out. Poor phrasing, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. I get it.
And then Frodo has this moment where he's kind of like overtaken by the power of the ring for a second. And I noticed that he was looking a little beat up here, but I noticed later that he looks even worse, specifically around his neck. So I just wanted to point out that at this point, his neck is still relatively clear.
It is a little scarred, but it's not like open sores or anything.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's getting really bad. But anyway, so I just wanted to point that out really quick. But Frodo's like, give it to me. And then he starts getting really intense and Sam gets scared, but he gives it to him. And then Sam starts crying a little bit because he is scared, which I totally understand. And I felt so sorry for him in that minute. And then Frodo says, you don't understand, Sam. It's my burden. It would destroy you. So I get it. I thought at first that it was more of like the pull of the ring, which I think it was a little bit, but I think he justified it pretty well by being like, I don't want it to do to you what it's done to me.
So I think with Frodo and this ring, I think there is a part of him that's trying to protect Sam because his humanity is still there and he still cares about that. But when he sees the ring and it's not on his person, it's not with him, he has this pull and this desire and this fake sense of comfort of having it near him when actually it's bringing him intense discomfort. There's still a part of his brain that's like, I need this. I must have it with me.
You know what that actually reminds me a lot about? We're going to get into mental health for a quick second here, but I have terrible anxiety, which I do take medication for. But one of the things that I've learned about anxiety is something called false comfort. And I think that's what we're experiencing with Frodo is a false comfort. And it is what it sounds like. It's not that difficult, but basically when you're dealing with anxiety, one of the things that a lot of people would tell you to rely on is, oh, you can have this comfort item. Like one of the things that my therapist has talked to me about is like, you've got a lucky charm or something like that you're holding on to. And without it, you wouldn't feel comfortable in an otherwise uncomfortable situation. But because of it, you feel comforted. But it actually ends up being more detrimental to you.
Because what if you don't have it with you?
Because you're just swapping out one anxiety for another. Yeah. So it is a false comfort. So as soon as you said that, I was thinking like, wow, this is just like anxiety.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I feel like there is a sense of that with him. Yeah. For sure. I think there are a lot of parallels you can make with struggles that people deal with in their real lives, not in Middle Earth, in Earth.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like a fantasy version of a lot of things that we see.
Exactly.
You know, like anxiety, maybe a little bit of depression, and even addiction as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So they get dressed because at this point, Frodo is, like I said, shirtless. And Sam's like, you can't be walking around naked.
And not but your skin.
I wasn't going to write it down, but it's a pretty good line.
That was a bad accent. I'm sorry.
No, I thought that was a great accent. You're doing great.
Thank you. And he's like crying through this line too. Sam has been crying for hours every time we've seen him for the past hour of this movie.
And so has Leah, ironically.
So have I.
So maybe you are the Sam in this situation, and I'm the Frodo with anxiety.
I think I am Sam.
But they do grab some clothes. They're grabbing the orc armor, I assume.
I think they're taking it off the dead.
Lovely. We love that. I actually thought they kind of looked a little silly. Like they did look like kids dressed up in armor. So then they get outside, and at this point it's so funny because I actually wrote down like, wow, they're still so far away from Mount Doom. And then Sam is like, oh, we made it. And I was like, what? You're still so far.
Yeah, because they still have to climb the mountain.
Yeah, that's still so, like, that seems like at least a few days journeys ahead. Like, I remember at the beginning of the second movie, it seemed like we were the same distance away. And I was like, you're right there. But I mean, they're still right there.
No.
But there's so much to get through.
And before they were like going in circles, they're getting captured, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel that honestly, as a hiker and someone who goes on long hikes, sometimes you're like, oh, this has to be just at the top. Like, we must be just here. And then it's like still 6 more miles. So it does trick you.
I don't think I've ever hiked 6 miles in my life.
Oh, yeah. One time I did a 5-day trek in Peru.
That's pretty impressive. I feel like you could probably get to Mount Doom.
We were doing in the double digits every day.
Wow. Okay, yeah, no, I think the longest I've ever done in a singular hike was like 2 miles.
No, I definitely feel like I do more miles than the average hiker.
Person, yeah. Well, I guess you are trying to live out your Hobbit dreams.
I know. I'm preparing for when Gandalf knocks on my door when I turn 50.
And oh my gosh. You just reminded me again that Frodo was a 50-year-old man. But anyway, back to this trek that Frodo and Sam still have to take, which again, honestly, it seems like it's so far. So I was starting to feel a little hopeless at this point. And I didn't even realize this until he said it, but there's a giant army in the way. And that was the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, there's still so many of them. Like, I thought that was it.
And how are they going to get through the army?
That is the magic question, isn't it? But Sam says they got to do it. They got to get through. So meanwhile, back in the White City, Gandalf is there and he's worried about Frodo. So the rest of the Fellowship is in this room. I think it might be the throne room, but it looks a little different now.
Yeah, I think it might be too. Or like one of the rooms. Yeah. They might have like a war meeting room.
Oh,
or
yeah,
something,
yeah. Perhaps. Gimli's sitting in the corner, smoking his weed, just having a good celebratory weed smoke, as they tend to do in these movies. Gandalf is worrying. He says that Frodo is beyond his sight and he can't really see what's going on, which I thought was a little confusing. Can he see the future?
I think he has some sort of foresight. I don't know exactly the extent of his power, but I think that's why at this point he's been so confident that Frodo is alive, because I feel like he would feel it if he had died. But in this moment, this is the first moment we see Gandalf has always been that beacon of hope of, no, we can do this. Like, it'll be fine. He's always very calm and collected. And he's totally given up at this point.
He is worried. And he did mention the actual number 10,000 of orcs. He said there's 10,000 orcs between Frodo and Mount Doom. And he is worried that Frodo is going to die.
And he even says it. I sent him to his death.
Oh, yeah. He said that. And I felt so bad for him in that moment because you could see that
felt
really
so bad.
hurt him. Yeah. But Aragorn says that there's still hope, and he's coming up with a plan. He wants to draw out Sauron's army. So he's like, well, what if the eye is looking elsewhere? And what if the army comes to us? And I don't remember exactly how they say it, but the Fellowship basically establishes that they are not going to be able to defeat this army, but the least they can do is draw them away so Sam and Frodo can complete their journey. And I did write down that Gimli had a pretty funny quote, and you're already smiling.
Can I say it?
Give it to us.
Only because I used to say this as a kid all the time because I thought it was the funniest line ever. It's certainty of death, small chance of success. What are we waiting for?
Yeah.
And I thought that line was hilarious, and I said it all the time.
That's Leah's life motto.
Honestly,
she's like, let's go for a 20-mile hike today. Certainty of death, small chance of success. Let's go for it.
What are we waiting for?
So they start to ride out for, I believe it's called the Black Gate. Is that what it's called?
Yes. This is where in the second film they were trying to go in and Gollum was like, what are you doing? We can't.
Yeah.
So they're going there. So they're just on the other side. Frodo and Sam are just... They're just
oh, wow.
there.
Okay, yeah.
They're
I didn't realize
close.
what the connection was there. But yeah, okay, that makes sense. So that's like basically the main entrance into Mordor.
Yes.
And then we see from Frodo and Sam's perspective that the army starts to move away. And Sam's like, oh, look, a bit of good luck, which it totally is not, but fine.
I mean, it is in a sense.
I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's luck, though. I would say it's
good
planned.
plan. Yeah. I mean, but that's a solid plan. Like that they met up at this point and like they were done fighting. They could bring their armies to the Black Gate. Like it's all just going perfectly at this point.
Yeah. No, that I agree. Actually, maybe I take it back. Maybe it is good luck there.
It's the karmic universe, you know? That's what it is.
Yeah. But we do have a little bit of bad luck because the hobbits are running out of water. Frodo is completely out of water and Sam gives Frodo his water, just proving again and again that Sam is the most selfless character in this entire franchise.
And not only did Sam give Frodo his water, but then Frodo had the audacity to spill majority of it.
I was going to say that, but I was like, you know what? I won't get picky, but I'm glad that you said something.
No, this is a thing among fans.
Like he spilled it down his chin.
He spills it all.
So frustrating. The more I see Frodo and Sam, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, I am Frodo. I just don't even care. I'll just be like, just spill water down my shirt, even though there's like drops left.
But back to Sam being selfless, absolutely.
Yeah, Sam is incredibly selfless. He is so good. And Frodo actually says there's not going to be anything left for the journey home. And then we finally see Sam acknowledging, are you crying?
This is where it started. And it'll just go on for the rest of the film.
Sam finally acknowledges that there isn't going to be a journey home. This is it. And at this point, I noticed that Frodo is in very bad shape. So where the necklace is touching him, there's like open wounds on his neck. So he's really starting to bleed. He's actually starting to fall apart. I don't think it's similar to what Smeagol had gone through at this point. I think what we're seeing is him starting to fall apart with all the effort that it's taking to get to Mount Doom rather than the power of the ring taking him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think the proximity of the ring to Sauron.
Oh, it's getting stronger and more dangerous. Okay, that makes sense too.
Gollum was just chilling with the ring, and the ring was just chilling with Gollum. Like he wasn't trying to get back to Mount Doom.
They're just having a good time together.
This is almost part of the ring's plan. It was just chilling with Gollum, but it needed someone to take it into Mordor so it could get to Sauron. But the end game is failing a little bit. At this point, the ring should have been stolen, but it hasn't been. And so I think that's why it's weighing so much harder on Frodo. He's actually putting in an effort to get rid of it. And he's so close to Sauron that the ring is like amped up its power.
Yeah.
Because he's even losing it mentally a little bit too, which we see later.
So we actually start to see that right now. At one point, Sam is like, Frodo, hide. And the eye is kind of like sweeping back and forth. It kind of reminds me of like a video game where you have to avoid the path of the light.
Like in Life is Strange.
I was actually thinking specifically of Life is Strange. Yeah. And I thought at this point that the eye had seen Frodo and that's why he dropped, but then the eye looked away.
Yeah, the eye didn't see him. He was in the light, but I don't know. Movie magic, I guess. We just have to believe he didn't see him.
So a little bit confusing, but he does kind of drop down. And then we start to get these intercutting scenes between what's happening at the Black Gate and what's happening with Sam and Frodo. And that's kind of the rest of the scenes that we see. So we see that they bring the whole army, the army of man, to the Black Gate and nobody's answering. Kind of awkward. And then Aragorn comes out and he starts yelling for them to answer for what they've done. And then finally the gate does open and we see tons of orcs. And then at one point we go back to the Eye and Frodo and Sam. And Frodo's still dropped down for a while, but then eventually he is able to get back up.
And the Eye directs away to...
Yeah, the Eye is back I think he said facing the north. Meanwhile, we see Aragorn and he's talking to his soldiers. He's hyping them up and he's saying there's going to be a day where man falls and all this stuff is happening, but it's not going to be today.
But it is not this day. I love this speech so much. This is when I was texting you, so I feel like I didn't get the full experience of it.
It was very good. I got the full experience. I was ignoring you.
Okay, cool.
I was just in the moment.
But this speech is so good.
But I was actually thinking while Aragorn was talking to his army and saying all this stuff that Gimli was kind of right and he probably shouldn't have given up that army of ghosts.
Yeah.
Because that would have been pretty convenient right about now.
Then they definitely would have won.
Meanwhile, we see Sam and Frodo again. They're really struggling to get up the mountain. Sam falls at one point and Frodo keeps going, which I was really shocked to see because Frodo is not the type.
This is when they were like literally crawling, right?
Yeah. So they're crawling at this point. I mean, they're nearly like dead, right?
Dead, yeah. While they're crawling, did you notice the music that was playing?
I didn't.
I think this comes with watching it often and starting to recognize the different themes of the different places and the different characters. They play the Shire music while they're crawling.
I can see how that kind of ties into the next thing that happens, which is that after they've both fallen from exhaustion, well, actually, there's another intercut scene back at the Black Gate where Gimli is like, I can't believe I'm about to die next to an elf. And Legolas is like, well, what if you died next to a friend? And Gimli's like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, that gets me too.
Oh my gosh. Then we get back to, speaking of the Shire, as you were saying, Sam crawls over to Frodo and he's holding him. And he's like, do you remember the Shire? Do you remember?
And the Shire music is still playing here too, yeah.
Well, I didn't catch the music part, but he was telling him stories about what it was like.
The juxtaposition of that sort of imagery or sound cues or whatever, when you have these two really opposing
visual and audio,
images or visuals, audios. And that's one of the most powerful film techniques for me personally. And so I think that's why hearing the Shire music and picturing the Shire, but then seeing this like dark, desolate, dusty place made me cry.
I think it's interesting to hear us both kind of talk about like what we picked up in the scene, because I think you're very audio driven and I'm very visually driven.
I think I'm both, but definitely audio for things like this. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I think well, maybe it's because I'm saying all of the visual parts and you're saying basically all of the audio parts.
Yeah. No, I actually think you might be right, because in Star Wars too, I think a lot of my emotions get turned on because of audio cues. You might be right. Maybe I'm learning something about myself.
I think you're very audio driven and I think I'm very visually driven, because even like thinking back, this is such a digression, but really quickly, thinking back to the fact that I understand and appreciate movies so much more with the subtitles on, but I prefer to read books than to watch the movies. And not because, the book is always better than the movie, because I don't think that's always the case. But I always do find myself picking things up a little bit better when I read it than when I see it. So I think I'm very visually driven. Like, I need to see the words. And you need to hear it.
I actually do try to watch movies without subtitles, but I usually fail because I'm only half paying attention to things whenever I watch them. But I prefer not to, because I like to just be fully immersed in like what's happening, you know?
Yeah. No, I got to be reading it to know what's going on. Otherwise, I'd be so lost. Because then I'm like, wait, what did she say? And then I have to rewind it. And then it's like a whole thing.
But back to the film. He's talking about the Shire. Tell us about that, Kelly.
Yeah. And Sam asked Frodo, like, do you remember what strawberries taste like? And at this part, I actually started getting a little freaked out, because, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think I'm right, because Frodo says, no, I don't remember the taste of strawberries. I can't recall the taste of food, the sound of water. And he starts going on like that. And I thought this was an echo of what Smeagol was saying in the beginning of the movie as he's losing himself.
It was very similar. They said different things,
it was
but
a
he
weird
said,
echo of it.
I forgot the taste. I don't remember what Smeagol said. He said the softness of the wind.
The taste of food, the sound of
they
water.
said similar things, but I think that was intentional.
Don't worry, I wrote it down. Let me consult my notes.
Okay, cool. Go back to that, because I do think it was intentional, but I knew they definitely said different things.
He said he forgot the taste of bread, the sound of trees, the softness of the wind. And Frodo says he forgot the taste of food, the sound of water, and I think the feel of grass.
The touch of grass, yeah.
The touch of grass.
So they're very similar.
Yeah, it was like an echo, but it's slightly distorted
different
echo. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of scary. in that it shows how far gone he is.
And he's also having visions too. Like before he falls here, he's kind of swatting away at things.
Yeah, he was really starting to lose it.
And then he says that he sees him. So I'm assuming he's got to be hallucinating at this point as well.
He says there's nothing between him and the fire.
The wheel of fire, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of assuming that's Sauron's doing there.
Yeah.
And then Sam says, so let's be rid of it once and for all, or something like that. And then he says, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. And Sam, the hero that he is, the true main character of the story, starts carrying Frodo up the mountain.
Yes.
So pretty impressive there. Impressive that he, got the strength to do that. And then Sauron, meanwhile, at the Black Gate, is calling to Aragorn. And I started getting scared again. And then Aragorn turns around, and for a second, I didn't know what was about to happen, and Aragorn's tearing up a little bit, and I was like, oh no, something terrible is about to happen. But then he says, for Frodo, and they all start running, and that's an incredibly tense moment.
Merry and Pippin were the first ones out.
Yeah, I saw their little childlike bodies.
And that's 2 more cries for me. The I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. And the for Frodo. It should be for Frodo and Sam. Just saying.
Sorry. Oh, I didn't say it incorrectly.
No, that's what the movie should be. It should be for Frodo and Sam.
Yeah, they're giving Frodo way too much credit, and Sam is the real hero.
And I have thoughts on that about like my progression and my relationship with Frodo.
Okay, wishful
my
thinking.
relationships with these characters. But no, my feelings towards Frodo as a character has definitely greatly shifted, and I'm excited to tell you what I think his role and his purpose was in relation to Sam, in relation to the ring, and sort of like my final thoughts on that, because I think it's insightful, but I can't say it until the last film. So stay tuned until we get to that part.
Well, actually, I think I'll have some thoughts at that point too, because at the beginning of this trilogy, before we watched it, I was like, all Frodo all the time. That's all I want to see. I just care about Elijah Wood. I don't care about any other characters. I just want this to happen for me. So it's interesting to see how my perspective has shifted from the beginning of movie 1 to the end of movie 3. But that is where we left off. We really stopped right in the middle of the tension.
Very tense
But
moment.
I'm excited because I feel like that's just hyping me up for the ending. But hopefully everybody else feels the same way.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely was a tense moment where I was like, oh my God, can we even end here? Because I was like literally sobbing at that point.
Oh my
and it's like that
gosh.
just till the end, like this whole last final.
I wonder if I'm going to cry at all at this point, because what do we have, a half hour left? And I feel like we've had a lot of powerful moments, and I've not cried. I know I got a little choked up at one point in the second movie, which you didn't cry at all during. So this just further proves that we cry at very different things.
Very different things. Oh my gosh. But oh man, I'm excited to keep watching. This last part is just so good. You know, we got so wide with the stories in the past 2 films, and now it's all come back together. And this is what we have. We have Frodo and Sam, and we have the rest of them at the Black Gate, and that's it. That's all we have to watch. And we get to see where our characters end and like what happens to them and how the story unfolds.
Will it be a happily ever after? I'm assuming yes, but we'll find out what happily ever after entails.
Or will they all die in the lake of fire?
Well, I mean, I don't think everyone's going to survive. That's for sure. I don't think Frodo's going to live, and now I'm wondering if Sam's going to live too. I feel like he might die with Frodo because Frodo is his bestie, and maybe that's, the end of his journey as well. So I think they're probably going to die. I think the most of the Fellowship is going to survive. Maybe either Legolas or Gimli is going to die, because I think we've now proven their bond with each other, and I think we're at the point where we know how much they love each other, so it would be okay, by movie standards if one of them were to die, because they've already said, we're besties now.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's all my predictions. But I do want to say before we finish, I know we have one more episode left, but the podcast does not end here.
No, it does not.
We have so many. Should I even begin to tell you the list of movies and shows that I've not seen?
We've definitely mentioned them before, but we can definitely list them out here for our lovely, lovely listeners.
Just off the top of my head, the movies and shows that I have not seen that everybody thinks that I'm absolutely out of my mind for. I've never seen Star Wars. I've never seen Star Trek.
You've never seen any Star Wars, right?
No Star Wars, not even one.
Okay.
I haven't seen The Matrix. I have seen some random movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I haven't seen most of them.
Yeah.
And I think some of the movies that I have seen in that universe were previous iterations of them, like Spider-Man. I don't think like the current Spider-Man I've seen.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I've never seen Jurassic Park.
Ooh.
And I know a lot of people were telling me other things that I have just never seen. And there's a few animes as well.
Yeah, I would love to do the Studio Ghibli films. I don't think either one I've seen.
I have seen some of them. And I think that would actually be a really fun in-between thing to do, like in between some of these heavier franchises. But you're going to find out because we're going to do an episode 0, so to speak, for each season. So anything we do, you'll know ahead of time what we're going to do. But if you want any sneak peeks or if you want to take any guesses, feel free to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter's the best place to find any of that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that wraps it up for the penultimate episode.
I can't believe we're almost about to see it, the end.
I know, I can't believe it. And I'm so glad that I did it with you.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad.
Not with that random guy from my college class.
I am glad as well. I have a similar story to your Lord of the Rings story with my first time seeing Star Wars.
Really? Oh, wow.
Except I did watch it with the guy.
Ooh, you've made a terrible mistake.
When we do our Star Wars season, you all have to come back to hear that story.
Yes, please come back. Please don't leave us.
Please don't leave us. We need friends. Nerd out with us.
Yeah, we're a bunch of geeks. Please come with us. Well, anyway, come back next week. We're finishing up The Lord of the Rings, all the kings, all the rings, all the lords, all the swords. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.
You've been listening to the It's All Geek to Me podcast, hosted by Leah and Kelly. Make sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast player and give us a rating. You can also find us on Twitter @AllGeekPodcast. New episodes drop every Thursday. See you next week.